privilege and honor to have you all here with us today for this history-making event. This event had been in the offering for the past 15 years. It all started when we felt it was necessary for us as captains of industry for us to galvanize ourselves to begin to proffer some kind of support and solution to our problems as a business community. That gave birth to Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum 15 years ago. And we felt we needed to shift the needle a notch further. As a research-based institution, we embarked on a research, and after the research, we felt the problem of our problems in the States is stemmed with our recruitment process. Because if we can't get the recruitment process right, it's always going to be a problem. So we felt the best way to address it is organizing ourselves, organizing the candidates to a debate for them to come and tell us what their blueprints are, what they intend to do for the state, and how best they could get that done. And that gave birth to the Rivers Debate Group. We had our first outing in 2015, and that debate was adjudged the best in the country, even better than that was organized by the presidential, for the presidential candidates. It was adjudged by so many media houses like the Financial Times. It was carried live all through the country and all around the world. And we had our second outing in 2019, and that was equally resounding. Now, the whole idea behind the debates is for us to get the candidates to come share with us what they intend to do, and for us from the private sector to try to see how we could set some agenda for them, because we realized that the public sector, there's a gap between the public sector and the private sector in the States. As at 2015 and earlier on before 2015, we were having scenarios whereby our businesses were being hounded by multiple taxation in the States and a whole lot of issues. We had communal issues and so on. So we felt it's important for us to cascade all of this, put them into some kind of questions, and share those questions with the candidates and walk through with the candidates to see that they get it sorted out. And it has worked tremendously. Believe me, it has worked very effectively. Now, before that time, we had issues around the IGR of our states. And we still have such issues, even till date as we're speaking. Those IGLs are still not going up. With the potentials Rivers State has, Rivers State has virtually all it needs. But the problem we've always had is the issue around how to galvanize the potentials into reality. And that's what we think this whole platform is all about. Now, before the 2015, we had scenarios whereby we went to the seaports because the Investors Forum is centered around researches. We did a research that pointed to the fact that if we could get the public sector to pay as much attention to key elements of the economy of Rivers State, we could grow the IGR from where it should to where it should be, or where it is to where it should be. And one of those major areas were the seaports. Now, if you go to the Google, go to Wikipedia, and you look at the enablers of economies like Jebel Ali in Dubai and the seaport Jebel Ali in Dubai, or that of Lagos in Nigeria, you find out that Lagos seaport generates 70% of the IGR of Lagos State. It's an economic enabler. So we took our time, visited the seaport, the old seaport in Port Harcourt. We couldn't even make our way to where the seaport is. We had to park our vehicles like 3 kilometers from where the seaport is situated, and we walked into the seaport. You can't even imagine a truck coming out of the seaport loaded with containers to make their way out into town. So we found out that the only thing that was functional was a conveyor belt in the seaports. And those conveyor belts were just carrying out cement. They were just conveying cement into the states. And we felt we could do better. We can't afford to have this amount of potentials and we're not using it. And we told ourselves, it's not an issue that we're going to take out against any political party or anybody. It's something we need to talk through with those people that are meant to run the state. And what better way could we begin to discuss these things other than such a platform? Now, I'll seize the opportunity to point out here that our developmental partners would have come through this process with us through thick and thin. And as you could see, the process and the whole debate is increasing and is improving from where it is. So the whole idea today is for us to set the agenda and to encourage the functionaries, to encourage the candidates to come up with their policies, and we'll look at it and we'll encourage them and work with them and see how best we could take Rivers State from where it is to where it should be. Without boring you with too much of my talk, I'll say thank you and welcome to the 2023 Rivers Debates. Thank you. No clapping, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ibifri Bob Manuel. We haven't even gone 20 minutes into the evening, and we've already forgotten one of the very important ground rules. Please, no clapping. Thank you very much for obliging. At this point, I'd like to welcome up to the podium our governorship candidates who have graced us with their presence in no particular order. Please welcome up to the podium the governorship candidate of the Accord, Chief Barrister Dumo Lulu Briggs, as he takes his okay, he's not here yet. Going on, the governorship candidate of the APC is right here, Architect Tonye Patrick Cole. Please make your way to the podium. Thank you very much. The governorship candidate of the SDP, the Social Democratic Party, Senator Magnus Ngei Abe, please make your way to the podium. Thank you very much. And right after the Labour Party governorship candidate, Chief Comrade Mrs. Beatrice Itubo, please make your way to the podium. Thank you very much.
Magnus.
At this point, we would like to take some goodwill messages. And I would like to start off with the governance advisor of the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the government department, Mr. Matthew Ayi Bakuro. Please make your way to the podium for your goodwill message.
Good evening, everyone. I'm told I have to do this in 2 minutes, and I intend to keep to that. I'm really glad to be with you here today, and I would like to start by commending all the stakeholders who have worked really hard to make this a reality, from the political parties and candidates here to the state institutions here in Rivers State, the media, the civil society organizations, and everybody else who has done this. Congratulations for this work. 2 quick points to make. Firstly, from a democratic perspective, today's event is critical and it is significant. The strength of democracy anywhere is underpinned by the social contract that exists between citizens and their leaders. And this is a concept that is demonstrated very well by today's events. It is very important that all sections of society, on a continuing basis, from women, youth, people with disabilities, and at all levels, are able to engage with their leaders and their potential leaders on the issues that are most important to them, especially during electioneering processes. And the hope is that this would, on the long run, create the foundations for very quality and responsive governance when the elections are over. And it is in this light that the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office is really glad to be supporting this event here today with other stakeholders. The UK is committed to our long-term support for Nigeria's democracy, but also our long-term work here in Rivers State. Nigeria's democracy matters. And as we've seen the news and interest from across the world, what happens here matters to people, the countries in Africa and beyond. Nigeria must get its democracy right. And events like this are very fundamental to that particular process. And it is in that vein that we are looking forward to a peaceful, credible, and inclusive elections in the process that will take place over the next couple of weeks. And for this evening, we're really excited by the engagement that we're going to be having, and we're hoping that you have a very fruitful deliberation and engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for keeping to time. We're also going to receive a goodwill message from Bishop Hassan Kuka. Sadly, he can't be here physically. However, he's been so kind to send us his goodwill message via video. So please look up to the screen as the media crew gets that video ready for his goodwill message.
Is going to fall. I have great affection for the Rivers, and I consider myself part and parcel of the social fabric of Rivers State. So, what happened? Good evening from Sokoto to the good people of Rivers State. I send you my hearty greetings, and I want to congratulate all of you, key political actors, into whose hands the decisions about the future of a sub-nation like Rivers is going to fall. I have great affection for the state, the people of Rivers, and I consider myself part and parcel of the social fabric of Rivers State. So what happens to Nigeria, we worry about it, but also whatever happens to Rivers is of concern to us. We are convinced that Rivers State, who is going to be, is in the hands of God, and is also in the mind of God. But my hope and my prayer is that Rivers, you will appreciate that Rivers has shed enough tears. Rivers has shed enough tears. People of Rivers State, because of what God has done for them and continues to do for them, deserve a better and a very good life. The foundations already laid by the predecessors are fantastic, and Rivers State definitely is coasting to be in competition with Lagos State, and that competition has been made even easier. I want to encourage you, stop looking backwards, focus on the future. Learn that politics is about consensus. The reason why the world has chosen democracy is that democracy manages to provide us with a wonderful opportunity to appreciate, to give, to take, to negotiate. Please make it easy and make it possible for the young generation coming behind you to find an easy foothold in which to grow, to find an easy foothold in which to aspire, and to find an easy foothold in which to use the resources and talents that God has given to them. So please, I want, as I say, to encourage you and ordinary people to know that you have to vote with the hope of staying alive. Politics will come, politics will go. But the Nigerian people and the Nigerian Senate and the people of Rivers will remain. So once again, I hope that this offers you an opportunity to express your views, express your convictions, and hopefully inspire others to rally around. So, to all of you, the good people of Rivers State, vote wisely. To all the contestants, behave yourselves, because people derive inspiration from their body language And very often, body language also can be deceptive. So I hope that you will inspire enough confidence in your people by how much you stand for truth. So now and always, I wish the great people of Rivers State all that they wish themselves. God's blessings. May this election be peaceful. May the contestants be ready and willing to accept the results. Pray for free, fair, and credible elections. And we hope that by the grace of God, the elections will come and they will go. A new government will come into power. Hope that, as I said, a lot of great things have been done in Rivers State. Make the state even greater. Thank you very much, and I pray that God will bless you.
I must say a very big thank you to Bishop Hassan Kuka for that goodwill message. As he already said, woven into the fabrics of Nigerian politics and electioneering season has always been some bout of violence or the other. And right now, every Nigerian's desire is to untwine these fabrics and once again enjoy peace. And hence, our candidates seated here today at this podium will be signing a peace accord. I'd like to welcome up on stage once more the president of the Rivers Debate Group and the president of RIF as well, Mr. Ibifri Bob Manuel, as he hands them the peace accord to sign. While the signing of the peace accord is ongoing, please allow me appreciate and recognize some of our major sponsors who have made this day very possible. I'd like to appreciate Stakeholder Democracy Network, SDN, the Foundation for Partnership Initiatives in the Niger Delta, PIND. They've also been a great support. The Community Initiative for Enhancement of Peace and Development, CIPD. We'll also have Nigeria Info FM, Port Harcourt, Business Day, Super FM, Timeless Images, Bob Tractors. Thank you so much for sponsoring and being a part and making this day possible to see the Rivers debates come through. Right after the signing of the peace accord, each candidate present will be given 10 minutes, 2 minutes, I beg your pardon, 2 minutes each to make their opening remarks. I believe our timekeeper is on standby, and just like Mr. Carl had mentioned earlier, at the sound of the first gong, it's a warning that your time is almost over. At the sound of the second, your time is over. I would like to indulge our candidates seated here to please keep to time when that time comes. I believe we're almost done with the signing of the peace accord, so we can move on to the opening remarks. I want to say a very big thank you to our candidates for agreeing to sign this peace accord, seeing how essential and how important peace is in elections season in Nigeria. A big thank you for your collaboration and unity in vying for peace during this election season. Without wasting more time, I believe they're almost done, so we'll just wait a couple of minutes. For those who might want to connect to their friends or colleagues or acquaintances who would like to be part of this debate, but however could not make it to this hall this evening, please be aware that we're streaming live on several platforms and you can watch, listen via the several platforms. We're streaming live on Nigeria Info FM 92.3 here in Port Harcourt. We're also streaming live on Super FM 93.3. Thank you very much. We're also live on Arise News Television, so you can also tune in there and watch. Remember, we're also streaming live on www.nigeriainfo.fm. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Once again, a very big thank you to our candidates who have agreed to sign this peace accord. Without any further ado, and without wasting any more time, Would invite each of these candidates for their opening remarks. Remember, you have 2 minutes to make your opening remarks. I'd like to welcome up to the podium the governorship candidate of the APC, Architect Tonye Patrick Cole, for his opening remarks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For lack of time, I'll just stand on every protocol that has already been established here today. My task here is pretty simple. It's to speak to the people of Rivers State and let them know why tyranny must come to an end, why respect and dignity must rise to the top, why it is important that they vote for people who care about them, and why it is critical that Rivers State begins to take its position again in the League of not just states, but the League of Nations. The world has become a much smaller place. Post-COVID, everything became connected and everyone began to notice that individuals matter just as much as nations matter. It then means that the way we select our leaders is critical. Those who represent us are important to us. We must be able to identify with them, touch them, feel them, hear them, but most importantly, know that they care for us. Gone are the days when results are written. Gone are the days when results are snatched. Gone are the days when the bullet speaks. Today, the ballot box is speaking. And it's the ballot box that we're interested in. It's the votes we're interested in. It's the people we're interested in. It's those who can think that we're interested in. I stand here to let the people of Rivers State know that they are seeing someone who thinks, who feels, who cares, and who is ready to represent them nationally, statewide, and globally. God bless you.
A very big thank you to the governorship candidate of the APC, Architect Tonye Patrick Cole, for his opening remarks. Coming up next is the governorship candidate of the SDP, Senator Magnus Ngei Abe.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on all existing protocols. First, let me use this opportunity to once again introduce myself to the good people of Rivers State. My name is Magnus Ngei Abe. I was born here in Rivers State in Eleme, Nigeria. I grew up here. My father was a priest of the Anglican Church, and my mother was a homemaker. I'm married. My wife is here with me tonight, and I have 4 children. I grew up at a time in Rivers State when all Rivers State was one united, happy place. And when it didn't matter whether your father was rich or poor, where you were and what you were, Rivers State provided for all our children. I went to St. Peter's State School, Yege. I went to Boys State School, Okrika. I went to Akwa Grammar School, Uzoba, amongst others. And I graduated from the Rivers State University of Science and Technology then, now Rivers State University, and I'm a lawyer. I have served this state in several capacities. I was minority leader of the Rivers State House of Assembly. I was secretary to the government of Rivers State. I've been a 2-term senator that has represented the people of this state honorably in the federal government. I have the experience to be able to help our state through this very difficult time. We have a state that every child, everybody can call home, but we need to come together and use the most important things we have to build a home that we can all be proud of. The most important things we have in Rivers State are its people, our environment, and we have the knowledge and the technology that we can use to make this state a home for all Rivers people, regardless of where you come from. We can come together here to work together using the ballot as our starting point to build a government that will be able to provide for all Rivers people. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Magnus Abe. I'd also like to welcome up to the podium for her opening remarks, Chief Comrade Mrs. Beatrice Utubo, the governorship candidate of Labour Party.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to stand on the established protocol. I'm Comrade Chief Mrs. Beatrice Etubo. I come from this state. I'm married in this state. Actually, I decided to come into this contest because I saw the yearnings of the Rivers people. And so based on that, I was driven by passion to come on board to see how we can salvage the state. When I was growing up as a child, I know that Rivers State used to be one of the frontline states. You go to Transamerican Industrial Layout, there are so many industries everywhere. Today, what do we have? Just have churches and few banks there. That's exactly why we have come to say we want to rescue the state, we want to take back the state and see how we can bring about development and put Rivers State in the committee of states. We have a Rivers child, a Rivers man or woman will be proud to say, I'm a Rivers citizen. And we have what it takes, have the requisite knowledge, we have the political will, we have the boldness to take Rivers State to the next level, where every Rivers person can be very, very happy to say I'm a Rivers person. And we are not only going to be, we are not going to only depend on Rivers State alone, we are going to also accommodate non-indigenous who are living in the state. The Rivers State government under my watch shall be gender sensitive. We have affirmative action on women, people living with disabilities, non-indigenous, and people that are vulnerable. And so we have a human face, and we are going to lead Rivers State with passion. We are not coming to rule Rivers State, we are coming to lead Rivers State to the destination that all of us desire that Rivers State should be. That's exactly what we have come to do. We are asking for the support and mandate of Rivers State. But then, I want to add that peace is priceless. And I want to also promise and pledge here today that I will never indulge in anything that will break the peace. I will not also encourage my followers to also indulge in any activities or actions that bring about breach of peace. We shall be law-abiding, and we shall do everything within the ambits of the law. Thank you for listening. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Chief Comrade Mrs. Beatrice Utubo, the governorship candidate of the Labour Party. Without wasting more time, I would like to welcome, again, I'm sure as you're aware, the questions to be asked at this debate are confidential, and we're going to officially open these questions so the moderators can do as they need to. So please join me welcome a member of the Rivers Debate Group. He's also a trustee of the Rivers Entrepreneurs and Investors Forum as he brings up to the moderators the questions for this debate, Mr. George Okoyo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and you are welcome to this year's edition of the Rivers Debate. I am George Okoyo, and as has been announced, I'm a trustee of RIF and also the chairman of the Question Committee. The Question Committee has a process for selecting questions. Usually we throw questions out and we ask Rivers indigents or those living within Rivers State to send us their own question, what they would like to see, question they would like to ask the candidates. In 2015, we got about 105 questions and was screened to about 15 before we selected the 9 questions that were asked. In 2019, we got 55 questions. And this year, we received 66 questions, and initially the committee screened the questions to 15, and usually the final selection is left with the chairman to select the final 9 questions. That I have done, and I can assure you that even the chairman or the president of RIF has not seen any of these questions. No other person has seen these questions. Questions are divided into 3 segments: economy, open governance, and security. So these questions are here, they are sealed, and I will use this opportunity to open it for the first time. Like I said, not even the moderator have seen any of them. I will do it one after the other. First one is economy. You can see
first baseline is to ensure that not one single person falls back into poverty. And how do you do this? The first thing that you do is identify what causes people to fall into poverty. 1, lack of cash. 2, lack of business opportunities. And 3, an overtaxing of a society and a people at a particular level. So how do we deal with this? The first aspect of it is to make sure that you have things like conditional cash transfers for the people who live at the bottom of the pyramid, market women, traders, those who are at the farmers, those who can very easily fall into poverty. You make sure that they never fall into poverty. That's the first aspect of it. Then you deal with the ones who have fallen into poverty, and how do you bring them out of poverty? There are certain payments that they often make that draws the little monies that they have out of them. They live on a day-by-day subsistence level. You need to be able to ensure that their subsistence level that they live on is tackled on a daily basis. You cannot afford to put them in any additional difficulty. I'll give you an example. One of the hardest places that were hit in Rivers State is in the area of flooding. Within a particular zone where you have the greatest number of farmers in the state, which is one of the biggest employment indices that we have, you have annual flooding each time. As long as those floods continue to attack the people of the Orashi region, the people in Onelga, and all the floodplains, they will never come out of poverty. So we need to be able to address that. In the final segment, you talked about youth unemployment. Youth unemployment, usually you find that where opportunities are lacking, like Rivers State that has had a huge explosion of people leaving the state, businesses leaving the state, we need to be able to bring them back into the state. I have been a businessman for most of my life. I understand what the indices of business is, and you will find it on two folds. The first aspect of it is peace and security. The second aspect of it is law and order. Once you can create an enabling environment, you begin to attract the businesses that have left the state back. They need to have people on the other side of the table that speak like them, speak with them, and understand them. That's what we'll be bringing. Thank you.
The governorship candidate of APC, we will take a follow-up, and you have just 2 minutes to respond to the follow-up to that. In vivid statistics and numerical, to what rate will you, in your first 1 year, reduce the population of unemployment, given every parameter you've mentioned?
So the key is what happens in the first 100 days. The first 100 days are very critical as to how you want to do this. Now, you have to have a coalition of what you will call the coalition of the unlikely. It means that you are bringing everybody, regardless of what party they are, regardless of what leaning they are, across into a place, as long as they believe in the River State and they believe in the movement, in the development of River State. So what we intend to do first and foremost is to bring people together that will work on the blueprint that will drive River State forward. Once we can do that, the first 100 days will be to tackle this. Within the first 100 days, we definitely were determined, that we will bring 100,000 people from each of the local governments that we have into an employment segment that begins to see where their talent is and where we can move them forward. Once we can do that, once we can achieve that within the first 100 days of bringing them into this bracket, then you'll be able to develop them out of the poverty bracket or unemployment bracket. That's what we intend to do. Thank you.
And still on questions on the economy. Again, may I repeat, we are asking candidates questions that focus on one of the toughest problems that face states in Nigeria as a whole, the economy. May I welcome candidate Labour Party. At the creation, Rivers State inherited the Eastern Erna Ware, the West African glass industry, powered supplies, and amalgamated distilleries, among other industrial entities in the agro-industrial sector. Rivers State invested heavily in oil palm, school to land, and the Delta Rubber Company recorded successes. In the 1990s, Reason Palm the government-owned palm oil industry had 56,000 hectares of fully developed palm plantation and created more than 8,000 jobs in the state. These are just some of the strides Rivers State previously made. Today, however, we have several uncompleted projects in the state that seem to continually distort the people's perception of government's developmental stride in the state. One of such is the monorail project. It has become a monument that disfigures the aesthetics and economic judgment of Rivers State. Majority of Rivers people hold the view that funds have been misplaced as they've not been applied into areas of maximum economic and social return. Candidate Labour Party, what are your steps to reindustrialize the state if elected governor? And what decision will you take, should you and would you, on the monorail project?
Yes, actually, let me start from the last question. The steps we'll take regarding ongoing projects, we are going to continue with those ones that we feel that are really relevant to the people of Rivers State. Because our projects are going to be people-based, and we are going to also have needs assessment. And after that, we'll begin to embark on projects. Then on the issue of industrialization of our moribund industries, we think that we have a blueprint. And in that blueprint, we have already, in fact, that we are going to go into revitalization of these industries. We are going to enter into PPP, public-private partnerships, and we are going to attract foreign investors into this state by, first of all, ensuring that there is security. Nobody wants to put his or her money in a place where it's not safe. And then once we have ensured security, how are we going to go about that? We want to engraft our traditional tools into the security architecture of the state. By so doing, these people are people that know these criminal elements in the society, and then we intend to also have monthly reports from them to see how we can be able to come together. And then when that is done, we begin to go out. We'll go out and partner with NOAA, National Orientation Agency, to begin to imbibe that discipline that the Rivers boy, Rivers girl, Rivers man, Rivers woman is known for. And when we have been able to win their confidence, and we'll begin to go all out to see how we can begin to revive these industries. The ones you have mentioned are even, the recent one, the syringe company at Obirikure is moribund. At least that one was also detailed. The essence of it was that it will supply syringes to hospitals within Rivers State and even outside. And at a point, we'll begin to export syringes to neighboring countries. But all that is gone. Are we talking of the Shanghai farm? Are we talking of so many other things? The Okomoko rubber factory and all of that. We are going to make deliberate effort, conscious one for that matter, to see how we can be able to revitalize these moribund industries. And aside that, we're also going to ensure that we go into a blue economy. What do I mean by that? We have to see how we can secure our waterways and environment. And by so doing, we'll be able to move on and carry everybody along. Mostly we are going to partner NASEMA, we are going to partner NECA, and then from there we'll begin to move on and look for foreign investors who will come when we have secured everywhere. Thank you.
Candidate Labour Party. Yes. And let me ask you the same question I asked the candidate of the APC. What plans do you have to reduce poverty and to address unemployment problems in Rivers State if elected governor? You have 2 minutes.
Yes, actually, unemployment issues are front burner in our list of priorities. And we intend to go into the local government to see how we have a development plan that we call MIC. That MIC means Manpower Incubation Centers. And at the end of the day, we are going to train people on how to prepare their curriculum vitae, on how to write applications and all that. And also, we are going to ensure that our vocational institutions are put in place so that they can be able to begin to upgrade their curriculum such that we'll have people that will have employment achieving job certificates. What we have these days are people carry on certificates that are not employable. And so when these people get these ones, then they will be equipped. And outside that, we are going to make conscious effort, even in the government cycle, to see how we can stop bleedings here and there. And that way, even in the government cycle itself, there'll be employments. But if you go to the education sector, it's nothing to write home about. No teachers, no other supportive staff. And you go to the health sector, the same thing. You go to the main civil service, there is nothing to write home about. So how do we must block leakages. And then once we block these leakages, we can be able to gather enough resources to enable us to achieve what we intend to achieve.
Thank you so much. In the absence of candidate People's Democratic Party, we welcome candidate SDP. Candidate SDP. We will begin with industrializing River State. Again, we will ask you the same question. What steps will you take to reindustrialize River State if elected governor? And what decision or decisions will you take concerning the monorail project?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for this very important question. I have often said, and I want to repeat here, that poverty can come naturally, but wealth must be created. The first thing that we all need to do is that we're going to get River State working again. And part of how we're going to do this is that we're going to separate the government, those who supervise our resources, those who superintend our resources, from those who have the responsibility to disburse and to also use these resources for the good of Rivers people. So as a governor, I will not be a contractor, and nobody working in our government will be a contractor. So when we say we're going to build things, we're going to build things using a competitive model. We're going to start by doing the most important thing that we can do at this point, which is first of all to tackle the issue of power. We will do that by working with the power companies to improve the power supply both to individuals and businesses. We're also going to work with the banks to create opportunities for Rivers people to be able to access credit. We're going to build new industrial estates using the models that have been used all over the world, which is that you provide the industrial estate with basically everything that is required for the businesses to run, and then you screen the businesses that come into these estates to come and operate, so that you have only people who have their own resources and investments to put in being part of the effort to reindustrialize the state. I believe that if we're able to tackle the challenges of security, and we're also able to tackle the challenges of credit and have a government that is honest in its intent and purpose, people will begin to bring their money here to invest. Yes, and to also say that it is very important that we realize that the most important thing we need to do as Rivers people is to begin the process of having a civil service that actually works for the good of Rivers people, not a civil service that works for those that are in. In doing this, it is not uncommon that we can train our civil servants and even pay them more than they are currently being paid, so that they can help to provide the kind of environment that will enable businessmen and women, both those who are currently in the state and those who are coming in, to have confidence in the government, which will enable them to come and invest in the schemes that we're putting forward to open up the industrialization process of our state.
Candidate SDP. As follow-up, still in the category of economy, we would like to hear from you your plans for poverty reduction and how you intend to address unemployment in River State if elected.
The fastest way to address poverty in this state is that we have to start by reducing the burden on those who are currently living here in the state. If we improve education and parents, we have public schools that can compete with private schools, then parents don't have to pay the kind of exorbitant fees that they're paying now. That money goes back into the pockets of parents and they can put it into whatever thing they are doing. If we improve power supply, then all the money people are spending on diesel, on generators and all that goes back into their businesses and into their pockets, and immediately they'll begin to feel the impact of better government. If we make the civil service efficient so that the service actually delivers on the things we want, and we employ people, not because we want to give them jobs, but because we want to provide services to Rivers people. For example, waste disposal, we can build better waste disposal facilities. We can also build better traffic management systems. We can bring in security architecture that engages some of our youths and also give opportunities to those who are currently doing things to be able to work with the government in such a way that government money moves around instead of being kidnapped by a few persons. I believe that once we begin to do these things and money begins to trickle down, the impact of that money in the pockets of individual men and women in this state will have an immediate impact, both in the confidence of the citizens, in the ability of the government to be able to tackle their problems, and in their own ability to be able to work hard, because their hard work will pay instant returns and dividends. The current system of multiple taxation, harassment of businesses, harassment of people and all that would be immediately brought under control. We're going to, thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, in the next round of questioning, we will be speaking to the issue of conducive environment for business. And again, I'll welcome candidate APC. The issue of multiple taxation from the federal, state, and local government tax agencies has become a major impediment for many companies in Nigeria. As in some other states, Rivers State has been known for multiple taxation, demands from touts, and other harassments. Many companies have indeed left Rivers State because of this challenging situation. As we face falling revenue due to crude oil theft and the general downturn in the world economy, there will be pressure to create new taxes to increase existing one to maintain or increase revenue. As the governor of Rivers State, candidate APC, how do you plan to address multiple taxation and tax processes in Rivers State and strike a balance between improving internally generated revenue and creating a better environment for business people? Your time begins now.
Thank you very much again for another excellent question. Regarding multiple taxation, it has been proven the world over that where you do not have clarity of taxation, then the willingness to pay goes down. And where you have the willingness to pay for taxation, then you have people who will begin to dodge taxation. When you have people dodging taxation, then you have the strong arm of the law coming down. When you have the strong arm of the law coming down, businesses flee, which means that the first problem is multiple taxation that is not clear. What we then intend to do is to simplify the taxation process. What you do in that case is that you have a single point of entry that is extremely clear, very transparent, and people can see exactly what they're paying for. Once people know that there's a simple form of taxation, not complicated, but very simple form of taxation, then the willingness to pay increases. But then there's a second part of it. People want to know that what they have paid for, they're actually getting a return for it, which means that the government that collects the taxes must use that tax to work for the people. How do you begin to work for the people? There are three ways. The first aspect of working for the people is making sure that there is a conducive environment that allows them to thrive, allows them to do what they are best suited to do. Where is their talent? Where is their skill? And what are you doing as a government to provide that environment? Taxation money does that. Just prepare for that so that they can express themselves. The second area is in the infrastructure that then allows it to do so. Once you give them the right infrastructure, whether it's in theaters where they can go and express themselves, whether it's in schools where they can go to learn what needs to be done, technology with fiber optics that enables technology to thrive. Once people can see that their money is working for them, then the willingness to pay the taxation comes in. So for us as a government, we want to simplify taxation such that you have if you can have one single point of entry for all tax matters, then that's clear. People know exactly what they're paying for. Once you've been able to do that, the last part of taxation that then works, most people will want to dodge taxes, but then there are consequences for dodging taxes. There's a particular band of people that you should not bother to tax. The poor should not be taxed. So where you have the issue of people going out, harassing market women, collecting all sorts of taxations from them, that's where you find that there's a problem. Allow them. they do not need to be taxed. The tax bracket begins to move up the more you are able to do it. But then there's too high a taxation level. And I found out from life across the world that when you get to a particular band and the taxation is too high, then those people who know what to do begin to bypass the tax bracket. We don't want that either. So we need to simplify taxes for everyone to be willing to pay and able to pay. Thank you.
Candidate APC. On the follow-up, still on economy, we would like to know, what is your plan and blueprint to reindustrialize River State if elected governor? And what decision will you take concerning the monorail project?
Thank you very much again for that question. Industrialization is based on what sectors and what segments can bring forward. River State has a peculiar problem, and that problem is that it's a one-city state where you have everything concentrated within the Port Harcourt region, leaving so many others out of the bracket of what can be done. So the first aspect of it is that you need to be able to create themed industrial cities, industrial areas. So one of the things that we have determined to do is to ensure that industrialization is diversified from Port Harcourt itself. You have industrialization around technology, a technology hub that works with logistics, which COVID proved that logistics is one of the fastest and highest growing areas that you can work on. So technology and technology hubs for an industrialized city outside of Port Harcourt is one of the ways. Agriculture is one thing that we have, a food basket in River State that can feed what you have, what we call food security, which we see across board. So agricultural development and industrialization of the agricultural sector, especially from post-farm processing and exportation, are things that we must work on. So that's a second area that you must deal with. The third area has to do with the marine aspect of it. The entire riverine community of River State has an industrial sector that has been left totally untapped. So you have agriculture, you have what we call the blue economy, and lastly, you have what is the fourth industrial revolution, which is the technology space. We must be able to work on all three, but decentralize it also out of Port Harcourt, which we already have an established base that we can work with. Port Harcourt will be revitalized because you have the infrastructure already in here, but you must diversify from Port Harcourt to make it work.
Candidate APC, you've not answered a B part of the question. What will you do with the monorail project?
Sorry about that. Okay, now the monorail project is a project that we have to take a look at. Most people already see that one of the problems that they have is that these are things that you've seen across board. In Lagos, the project worked in Lagos. In Dubai, the project has worked. In River State, it did not work because a lot of the money had been paid out and the contractor that collected the money did not end up doing it. So one of the things that we must do basically is to bring that project down onto the ground level. Rail has become one of the critical transportation successes of any government. You need to have mass transportation. And mass transportation is something that we will invest in River State.
Thank you, candidate APC. And now let's welcome candidate Labour Party. We'll go straight to the issue of conducive environment for business. As a governor, if elected, what do you plan or how do you plan to address multiple taxation and tax practices and strike a balance between improving internally generated revenue and creating a better environment for business growth in River State?
Thank you. I think what we ought to do, first and foremost, is to streamline taxes. And when taxes are streamlined, we'll be able to know which industries are taxable and which are not. If you see all over the globe, there are industries that you give tax rebates, there are others that you go headlong to tax. But before then, we must ensure that we have a single treasury account. Nobody will be jumping in and out of HELOCs to harass companies and also begin to do things the way that is uncomely. We are going to have a very civil state whereby we employ credible people to do certain jobs. We are not just going to throw around things because they are political aides, they are supporters, and then you begin to put square peg in round holes. No, we are not going to do that. And so we are going to consciously begin to put in place measures that will begin to supervise itself and see how we can come out with this single treasury account system. And of course, when people are overtaxed, the tendency is that they will run away from the place. But when you are taxing them and they are not making that profit, and how do we intend to go about that? We'll also make the environment conducive. Like I've said earlier during the introduction, I said that we will ensure that there is security. And when there is security, and then there is power, and people have the confidence in the system, of course, when you give them what to do. And of course, the system will also replow back these taxes. Sometimes people evade taxes because they feel that what they are paying for, they are not seeing any dividends to it. There was a time, for example, the NEPA people came to my neighborhood and they were almost lynched. They don't bring this light. And at the end of the day, you want people to pay for services not rendered. And so we are saying before we can be able to tax people, we must also provide what we ought to provide as a government. And when that is done, of course, people will willingly, when they have that confidence in the system, they will be willingly pay their taxes. And of course, we are not going to overfloat taxes because that's another sure bet of making people to leave the scene. So when we are going to be reasonable, do tax assessments, and then tax people accordingly. And of course, you see that the system will begin to flow, and then industries will come, and then the state will flourish. Of course, under our watch, this state will become Dubai of Nigeria.
Candidate Labour Party, as a follow-up, you talked about conscious measures put in place. Could you explain these measures and how conscious are they? 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. We are going to ensure, like I said earlier, that we put in place people that will go and do the assessment of these industries and all of that. There are some industries that are so essential that you don't need to overtax them, like people that are supplying medical equipment and all that. There's a way you tax them and they will leave the scene, and when they leave, there will be medical tourism. And that will also be draining the state of its resources. Therefore, we are going to look at it and then put them pari passu and see how we can be able to tax people in modest ways, the way they can be able to pay seamlessly. And then at the end of the day, we'll all have to be better for everybody. Because by the time you begin to overtax people and they don't pay at all, they evade taxes, then of course, the state will be losing revenues. And at the end of the day, the aim of your wanting to tax people, you will not even be able to achieve it. And so we are going to ensure that we put in place seamless efforts where people, responsible citizens, will go and do these assessments, and then we'll begin to tax people accordingly.
Thank you so much, Candidate Labour Party. In the absence of the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, may I welcome the candidate of SDP. Candidate SDP will be speaking on creating conducive environment for business. As Governor of Rivers State, how do you plan to address multiple taxation and tax practices and strike a balance between improving internally generated revenue and creating a better environment for business growth and business to thrive?
I think that the most important thing we have to do as a government is to convince the people of Rivers State that their money is being spent efficiently, wisely, and in their best interest. People must understand that Nigeria is one of the few states in the world where citizens expect services from the government without knowing how much the services would actually cost or how the money is raised, because we all believe that we're selling oil and oil will pay for everything that we want. I think the first thing we need to do is to open up the books to Rivers people. Let us know exactly how much we have. Let us know exactly how many we are. Let us know exactly what we need. And then we know the shortfalls that we have. We know the cost of the government. You cannot have a government in which the officials of the government are driving the most expensive SUVs on the planet, living in the most luxurious houses, and then they are telling you that there is no money for desk in the school, you should come and pay money. There is no money to fix potholes, you should come and pay money. People will not pay. The first thing we must do as a government is to open up the government and make the government transparent. And people must see that those of us in the government are the first ones to make the sacrifices that is needed to get the state to move forward. Once we do this, it will not be a problem for us to tell other Rivers people that, listen, these are the shortfalls we need for education, these are the shortfalls we need for this, and this is therefore what you have to contribute. That is one. The second thing is that once we begin to spend money efficiently, money will move around. I was a child in Rivers State, and I know that we used to have contractors in different parts of the state who will wake up in the morning, wear their clothes, come to the secretariat, register as grade A or grade B contractors, and they get jobs from the government without knowing anybody, based on open competitive bidding. I believe that once the public begins to participate in the government, begin to benefit from the government, it should not be a problem telling Rivers people to pay their fair share. I also want to say here that some of the projects that we do it to please the ego of those in power. It is not based on the needs of Rivers people. It is not based on the challenges that the society is facing. Once Rivers people begin to see that their money is being spent on the things that are important to them, and the results are immediate and visible, I believe that every Rivers man and woman will be in a better frame of mind, not just to support his own development and his own progress, but in the process to support the opportunity that will spread around the state for Rivers people.
Thank you, Candidate SDP. Thank you. And Your Excellencies, we've come to the end of the first round of questioning. We'll move to the second round. Thank you, Your Excellencies.
Good evening, Your Excellencies. This session will basically focus on security and environmental sustainability. Each of the candidates will be given only 3 minutes to respond to each question. The security situation in Rivers State has been well documented. Incidents of kidnapping, armed robbery, communal clashes, cult-related violence, politically related crimes are some of the major aspects of criminal activity in Rivers. If you drive along the major roads in Port Harcourt, you're likely to see able-bodied men wielding sticks and harassing commuter vehicle operators, which to a newcomer are signs of a really dysfunctional society. We know security and the local economy are strongly connected. Insecurity drives away investment, encourages skilled families to relocate, and has an associated impact on employment. This can become a vicious cycle, as increased unemployment also is a driver for more insecurity. Candidate for APC, if you are elected governor, what strategies would you use to create a secure environment for our families and businesses, but in particular for women who are susceptible to sexually based violence, to young persons who are vulnerable to being recruited by criminal gangs, especially the cult groups, and the persons with disabilities who are often largely the victims of violent conflict in communities? You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, moderator, for another great question. So we talk about security. One of the things that we have seen that insecurity is closely tied to is darkness. Where you do not light a society, where a society is dark, where you have dark corners, what you see is fear, what you find is rape, what you find is abuse, and what you find is all sorts of things happening. It's been proven the world over that if you want to bring down security by as much as 50%, just light a place, just keep the place well lit, and you find out that insecurity comes down first of all. What does this mean? It means that public access to public lighting in areas where the public use is extremely important. Kinetic and non-kinetic forms of security also work. But again, we found out that if you're going to rely only on boots on the ground, the guns, the long arm of the law and all of that, one, you don't have enough policemen, you don't have enough military forces to do that, which means that I am your best security, you are my best security. The neighbor security, care and love your neighbor as yourself becomes critical. So light up a society, then the civics that we used to learn when we were in school becomes critical, because what are you doing? You're educating each person, each child, first of all, about what needs to be done moving forward. So education becomes critical. Family education, home education, school education, at the primary and basic kindergarten level are critical for security to thrive. You don't have enough money anywhere in the world to police everyone. It's impossible. So, light up society, ensure that the education as to why the public spaces, why respect for the neighbor, and all of that is critical. Lastly, you talked about the vulnerable people, those who are physically challenged, or people who are living with disability. They are a huge part of our society, which means that respect is extremely important to them. Building codes and accessibility into places, crossing the roads, getting into public buildings and all of that, come with a respect and an understanding that they are a part of society. If you do not deal with them and you don't teach people how to respect those who are living with disability, then you find out that what you are then encouraging is abuse of persons. And once you abuse people and you do not respect them, then insecurity becomes a huge part of the problem. I'll leave it at that for now.
Yes, you talked about not being able to police everyone, and you focused basically on the non-kinetic strategies in dealing with insecurity in River State. We have seen a proliferation of vigilante groups across the country. And also within River State, you find communities have their own vigilante groups. And what would be your approach to community level security in the state in light of the evolving security challenges in River State?
So one of the places that we have gotten to is that local policing in itself and having state policing, you're already moving into that without the law fully accomplishing that. And so in a lot of areas, you have this whole local vigilante that you have put in. What do you need to do to work on this? The first aspect of it is that the community knows exactly who is coming in, who walks in, who are the strangers in that community, who comes in and perpetrates crimes within those communities. So it's an extremely important thing that communal policing is integrated into the law of the, not just Federal Republic, but within the state. So we have what you call vigilante groups, but what I would like to move it into is community policing. We already have that. We need to strengthen it. It's already allowed within this country. We need to delve a lot more into it, because the most effective policing is the local policing. The most effective policing is the policing at the grassroots, because we know ourselves at the grassroots. We know who is who. We know who is coming. I will strengthen that aspect of policing because I think it's critical for bringing down crime. There's no kidnapping that happens outside of your community. Everyone kidnaps and they come back into the area with which they're most comfortable. People know who they are. They need to be willing to expose and report them so that we can deal with them.
Thank you. Candidate Labour Party. In your opening statements, you said that you would really want to address the needs of the vulnerable groups. That is the women, the young persons, the persons with disabilities. If you were elected governor, what strategies would you employ to create a secure environment for groups such as those, but also for businesses?
Thank you, moderator. Actually, as I said earlier, we will deliberately put in place policies that will take care of these vulnerable in society. But first and foremost, we have to tackle the issue of security. But an insecure environment drives away people. And how do we secure the environment? We must also consciously create jobs, because joblessness and insecurity, criminality, they go hand in hand. There's a popular saying that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So when we begin to create these jobs, then you can see that those people who entered into crimes, not by choice, but because of frustration, would have been adequately taken care of. And then we'll have the little criminal element in society. But whether we like it or not, there are criminals everywhere. Even in the US, there are criminals. And so when we look at those people, they are now smaller enough, but then we can be able to tackle them. I'm a member of the River State Community Policing Committee. And actually, we were inaugurated, though nothing much has been done in that regard, but at least we have the requisite training that will be able to come back and involve the community. We have to involve the community. Like I said earlier, we involve the traditional schools, we make sure these people are respected in their localities. So at the end of the day, when they are involved, they will be able to know who is who. A case scenario is in my place when there was this much kidnappings and killings. Some of the chiefs were also aiding these criminals. How do I mean by that? Most of them, before the Council of Chiefs will want to hold a meeting, they will go back and divulge the whole information that was reached in secret to these hoodlums. So at the end of the day, when it was now known, you can see that most of these chiefs were kind of deposed, and at the end of the day, peace returned. So what am I saying? So that if we involve people, they'll be able to take care of themselves. Because in my family, in my community, I should be able to know who are criminal elements. And once I know that, and I am given the responsibility to see how I can have confidence in it, because there's another thing. We must create confidence in people to be able to volunteer information. I'll tell you, I had a critical experience. There were hoodlums living very close to me, and I had to report to the police. And at the end of the day, what happened? These people were arrested, and 2 days after they were returned, and one of them came to me, "Madam, we like you, but they say now you can't report us. It's still not try them again," and all that. And so you can see if we build that confidence that when people volunteer information, that will not go back to betray them behind. Of course, people will come out and begin to tell you who are criminal elements in the society. And that way, we can be able to tackle this issue of insecurity. But first and foremost, we must create jobs for these people who have entered into crimes, just not because of choice, but because of frustration. I think when we begin to go that way, then we are going the right way.
Actually, in quite a number of communities, a source of employment now has been joining a vigilante group. You've mentioned that you are a member of the River State Committee on Community Policing. And you've also mentioned in your remarks right now that it is important for community policing to work to make sure there is sharing of information, and people should be confident enough to do that. But I would like to know, what other approaches would you have to community level security within rivers other than what you've just mentioned right now?
Yes, actually, we will also partner the security agencies. But whether we like it or sometimes, power intoxicates and absolute power intoxicates absolutely. When you begin to give these powers, and some of them will not begin to metamorphose into criminals themselves. So we'll be able to have these checks and balances. When you bring in the security architecture of the state, and then you have this community policing, there will be checks and balances, and at the end of the day, you find out that things will begin to work the way they will also work. And also, we'll also have an external system whereby we can be able to check these insecurities. How do I mean by that? We are going to consciously, I'm very mindful of, I say consciously, put in place deliberate policies that will begin to see how we can encourage those who are doing good in society. You don't have to punish people always. People that have done well should be able to pat them on the back. And those who have done bad, you'll be able to say, no, it's not this way. And that way, when people are encouraged, then you can see the best coming out of them. So that's another approach I think we can also use, the stick and the carrot.
Thank you, candidate Labour Party. Candidate SDP. If you are elected governor, what strategies would you use to enable people within River State sleep with both their eyes closed and ensure that there is a secure environment for our families and businesses to thrive?
Thank you very much. When I'm elected the governor of River State, I would ensure that people understand certain basic principles. First of all, I do not believe that we cannot secure everybody in River State. If we can secure the governor, we can secure the commissioner of police, we can secure you. What brings security is that people must know that there are consequences to certain actions. When we continue to let people do things to ordinary people and nothing happens to them, it emboldens them to continue to oppress, harass, intimidate, kill, and do all sorts of things to our fellow citizens. I have been secretary of the Security Council of the state, and I know that the actions that we took at that time to provide security for Rivers people actually made a difference. The first thing we must do is that we must have a police that we ourselves as Rivers State government will fund. We have the means, we have the money, and we must deploy that money to train the police to be the kind of police that we want on the streets of Rivers State. I have promised Rivers people that when I become the governor, 15 days after I become the governor of Rivers State, no policeman will stand on any road in Rivers State that will not be paid by the government of Rivers State. We will not allow it here, and it will not happen. Secondly, We are going to train our policemen and pay them in such a manner that a policeman in Rivers State will feel different, behave different, act different from a policeman in any other state where we are not taking security as seriously as we will do here. I do not believe that it is a responsibility of communities to secure themselves. A lot of these communities are in bondage. These children with guns, they don't respect the chief. The chiefs have to give them information. If not, they will kill you. So we have to create a situation where people understand that the government is responsible for the security of everybody. Finally, I have told Rivers people that the anti-cultism law is counterproductive. We must invite all these boys, all these generals that are in the villages, in the forest, in the creeks, all of them must come out. I will meet with them and I will tell them how the new Rivers State is going to run. And those who agree to abide by it will be integrated into the new Rivers State. Those who refuse to abide by what we all agree will then become opponents of the new Rivers State that we are all agreeing that we are going to build after this election, and we will use the force and might of the law to deal with anybody who lives outside the law. There will be no excuses. There will be no rubbing the back of one child who is doing something bad while you try to punish another because he is not your supporter. If we uphold the law for everybody, there will be peace in our land, in our time. Thank you very much.
From your statements, candidate SDP, you mentioned that we would have police who are funded by the River State government, which implies that you're a proponent for state policing.
I don't care. You see, as long as we continue to give excuses for non-performance, there will be an excuse. Whether there is state police or no state police, even with the current structure, is the police not being funded by the state? Are the police forces not doing what the states want based on the funding of the state? Instead of paying the police to do the right thing, the wrong thing, we will pay them to do the wrong thing. It's still the same thing. So whether there is state police or there is no state police, the resources of Rivers State will be put into whichever policeman is brought here. I was secretary to the Security Council. I met with the IG at the time, and we agreed that we will post policemen here. Rivers State government will train them, and when we train them, they will work here for a given number of years. We took the policemen to Israel, we funded it, we paid for it. That's what resulted in the counter-terrorism force of the police today. It was started by Rivers State government. We can do the same thing. All these excuses about no state police, lack of fiscal federalism, they are excuses for failure. Under my administration, there will be no excuse for failure. We will secure Rivers State no matter what the challenges will be. We will overcome them and provide security for all Rivers people. If something happens to a farmer in Abu Audua, the same response that we will deploy if something happens to the MD of Shell is what will happen when something happens to a farmer in a village. Secondly, Rivers people do not have to go to the police and pay them to investigate their cases. The state government will pay for investigations. That's how you get the police to work, and we will get our police to work here in Rivers State. Thank you very much.
What would therefore be your approach to community-level security in the state?
I believe that the communities, once you provide an enabling environment for the communities to operate as communities, they will be able to do so. Before, in the state, if the police wants to arrest somebody, they go to the chief and tell the chief to invite so-so person and bring him to the station. The chief invites you, you show up because you don't have a choice. But today, if any chief dares to invite any of these armed boys, the villagers, the boys will beat up the chief and scatter everywhere. So the first thing we have to do is to reestablish the authority of the state. The communities will then benefit from the authority of the state. You cannot ask unarmed communities to confront armed people. What is the work of the state then? So it is a responsibility of the Rivers State government to ensure that every single square meter of the territory of this state is secured, and we will secure it.
Thank you, candidate.
Thank you very much.
I have one more question, and that is related to the environment. We will now start with candidate Labour Party. Residents of Rivers State have been exposed to the hazards of air pollution in the form of soot. And despite protests and cries from the public, media, academia, and civil society, air pollution persists, even though it seemingly has reduced. A 2019 report based on analysis of River State hospitals from 2014 to 2018 found that in over 20,000 people who received care for soot-related conditions, black soot had caused adverse respiratory, skin, and reproductive disorders. We also know a scientific work group was established to investigate the menace, and in 2019, the River State government set up a technical committee to implement the recommendations of the work group. If you are elected governor, what will you do to address a harmful soot pollution in River State? And would you also make that report of the scientific work group public? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think soot has been a very challenging issue here in River State. And we know that it's as a result of activities of man. First and foremost, we are proponents of seeing how we can be able to stop the soot in River State. And actually, over a few months ago, I think the activities of these people that perpetrate this soot situation has really reduced when the government took a bold step to see how they can stop the issue of bunkering and all that. And of course, we will also tap into that and see how we can improve on it by, first and foremost, trying to see how we can secure modular refineries. When we get licenses for modular refineries, because we know that this soot was as a result of this illegal bunkering activity. So when we get licenses for modular refineries, we will be able to kind of see how we can be able to supervise the activities. And then you see that it will be modernized. It will not be something that is not legal. Everybody will be a win. It will be a win-win situation because the government will benefit from the taxes. The people will benefit from the salaries that they will get from the operations of this modular refinery. So when we go to that level, I think we'll be able to see how we can bring the issue of soot and the other attendant health challenges associated with soot to the barest minimum. Actually, I work in the hospital setting, and I know that of recent, a lot of pneumonia issues, reproductive issues, and so many other attendant issues have been associated with this emission of soot. And then, of course, it's a worrying situation. Moreover, we know that the oil activities are happening here, and we are not benefiting even much like the people up there. And we are the people that are getting the repercussions of these hazards that are associated to this illegal production of bunkering oil and all that. And so we are saying that we'll take conscious effort to see how we can be able, and not just that, so many other illegal activities that are going on in the state, we shall take conscious effort to see how we can be able to put them under serious control. Like I said, we may not be able at a stretch to stop it totally, but we'll be able to reduce it to the extent that it will no longer pose a health hazard to the people of River State.
Candidate APC, how will you address the soot pollution in River State?
My communities and the communities of the riverine area are one of the heaviest hit by the environmental degradation that comes from the production of soot. And so it's extremely important that we create an alternative economy. If not, it will continue. They've tried for many years to stop it, and it continues. It thrives because there's no alternate economy within that sector that can take the young boys who are creating the soot away from that activity. So the first thing that we must do is create an alternate economy. That alternate economy is brought in twofold. The first aspect of it is that you must engage the young people in their talents and their gifts. Just keep them engaged. Sports, music, education, dance, whatever it is that will keep them engaged, do that. The second area is to provide the technology that allows them to do so. Technology is a great enabler. Once you can create technology, and one of the things that we want to do is make sure that the entire state is Wi-Fi capable. Once you can do that, then you begin to move people from one activity that brings money very, very quickly to another activity that brings money just as quickly. As long as you can create that where skills, talents are respected and all that, you begin to move. The next aspect of all of this, once you've created that aspect, is that the health bill that is coming out of soot-related issues is going to be a killer as far as we're concerned. If we don't deal with it now, it becomes a problem. The report you're talking about already shows that there is a huge health cost to us in River State, and we need to stop that. We need to stem it. Not talking about the cost of cleaning up the environment, which is another huge cost that is going to take another 20 years to deal with if we start today. But we must start. And so stopping is critical. The cost and the remedial monies that you need to do that is available, not just locally, it's available internationally, as long as you show that there's a willingness to move people out of this production and clean that environment. We're going to tap into that money because this environment must be cleaned. If we don't clean the environment, then we have a bigger problem down the line. So we must work on all of that. The money is available to do so, but we must show a willingness to move people out of one economy into another economy and then tackle the environmental issues.
Thank you, candidate APC. Candidate SDP, if you were elected governor, how would you address the soot pollution in River State?
I think that if we really want to face some of these challenges, we ought to be very, very honest with ourselves. The truth of the matter is that the soot business is being propelled, fueled by the powers that be. I have served as a member of the board of the NNPC, and we found out that in a lot of these instances, official collusion, official sponsorship is at the bottom of some of these challenges. And we need to, first of all, cut off the head from where the money flows into that activity, and automatically, if there are no returns flowing into it, it will be reduced substantially. Secondly, as a government, we need to also take steps to ensure that our children who get involved in these activities understand the consequences, not just to themselves, but to the larger society. I was visiting with a friend the other day, and he was explaining to me that some of our children who went out here to South Africa and all that, they developed strange headaches. And they found out that these children who were on amnesty had this kind of strange headaches that have not been seen anywhere in the world. And after much testing, they found out that it was because they were involved in cooking crude. So it is a danger to everybody. And I believe that as we explain this thing to people, we get the federal government involved to cut off the head from the Navy, from the oil companies and all that, then this thing will reduce and we'll be able to stop it. But I want to use this opportunity to commend the steps that have been taken so far to reduce it. But I believe that much more can be done. I don't believe that saying that we're going to do any kind of local refining would put an end to it. Because what makes this thing profitable is because they don't pay for the crude. If they were to pay for the crude, it cannot be profitable. They don't dispose of the waste properly. If they were to do that, it would not be profitable. So it's not something we can have because it cannot be profitably done in the circumstances in which it is being carried out here. Because if you dispose of the waste from this thing effectively, it will chop up all the profit that they are making. The only way they can make the profit is by destroying the environment. And so we cannot allow it to continue in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate SDP. And this marks the end of the session on security and environmental sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all. Thank you very much once again. This is the third and final segment of this debate. And in this part of the debate, we'll be asking questions of the candidates that focus strictly on open government and education. In its technical sense, open government describes the idea that citizens have the right to access the documents and proceedings of government to allow for effective public oversight. In a practical sense, open government could be described as a willingness to share government information that will help the public to take part in decisions that affect them. It also assumes that government is ready to improve the day-to-day input of the public into decisions they make about services, strategy, and spending. And now to the first question in this segment. And this has to do with transparent budgeting. A transparent and open budgeting process is a must for governance in today's world. Progressive governments provide avenues for citizens to track government spending. Many states and the federal government allow ministries to give annual briefing or presentations of their activities, tour questions and reviews. Now, this does not happen in Rivers State. Also, some states and the federal government allow budget breakdown sessions by the Commissioner of Budgets for the public, especially the media, labor, and NGOs. But it is no longer done in Rivers State. Now, sadly, Rivers State is one of the states where citizens, especially the press, labor, and civil society organizations, say they do not get to see the budget. And here goes the question. To all of you, candidate SDP starting with you, are you committed to ensuring transparency and accountability in the financial affairs of Rivers State, and how will you ensure this?
I am 100% committed to reformation of the systems in our state that has to do with money. I have told Rivers people that the whole essence of politics and governance is about money. And for us to be able to move this state forward, we have to be open about the fact that everybody needs money and everybody is looking for money. How do we use the money that belongs to all of us in such a way that everybody is satisfied that this money is actually being used for the benefit of the majority of Rivers people, to create an environment in which they can also prosper, and not only those in government should make money. One of the most important things we can do is to use existing systems. We have all sorts of technologically driven systems and apps that are being employed by all the major companies in the world. If you go to Shell and all these companies, they run open, transparent bidding systems. It is not that they're not able to help people that they want to help, but substantially, they run their business in such a way that they actually get value for the money they spend. So instead of spending our money running after people and accusing people of stealing, let us spend our money to build accounting and processing systems and procurement systems that are technologically driven, where prices can be assessed, compared, and government pays the same value for things as other people will pay, with, of course, an agreed markup for those who do government business. Secondly, the most important thing that we have to do when it comes to transparency in government business is to ensure that people who do government business do not have to go and lobby anybody before they can be paid. A lot of those who today are talking about these issues do not have the experience to know what actually creates the corruption and the mess that we have in our system that makes it impossible for us to achieve anything. Even when contracts are given transparently and people know that they are not going to get their money as at when due, responsible contractors will not take part in that process without an understanding with the man who will pay the money that they will be paid as at when due. Once we begin to run a system whereby the finances are open in such a manner that if you have a government contract, you can stay in your house when you're due for payment and be paid. You don't have to go and see the commissioner in the night, see the permanent secretary in the morning before you get your money. People will develop confidence in the systems that we build, and everybody will abide by it. We are not going to have a system where the governor will say, okay, I'm not involved, but you allow the same thing that you claim not to be involved to be going on all around you. We can actually do better, and the technology is there for us to use it to do much better than we're doing currently. Thank you very much.
Candidate of Labour Party. The same question. Are you committed to ensuring transparency and accountability in the financial affairs of Rivers State, and how do you intend to ensure this?
Yes, actually, I am highly committed to ensuring transparency and accountability, and of course, probity, because there must be checks and balances. And actually, sometimes the issues surrounding government transparency are enormous. We may not be able to know much about it because it starts from the head. You who is at the helm of affairs, how do you go about doing the things that you ought to do as government business? When you begin to bring people around you, your brothers and your sisters, your relations, to begin to do government business, there will be nepotism. And when there is that, then you begin to compromise standards. If we are really doing government business, we should be able to know that actually government business is government business. It's everybody's business. And we all become responsible and then begin to know that we are going to approach it like budgeting. For some years now, The issue of budgeting in River State has always been shrouded in secrecy. Nobody knows where budgets are passed and the rest of them, but we are not going to do that. And the River State government under my watch shall be very conscious to strengthen institutions. When institutions are strengthened, you will see that things will begin to go the normal way. By the time you allow the legislature to be independent, the judiciary to be independent, every other person will begin to function optimally because they know that you are not going to punish them for one thing or the other. What we have these days is that when people bring budgets overnight, budgets that before now, you know that they will go about getting the first reading, second, and they will pass it to committees. Now it is no longer, when budget comes in the morning, before afternoon it is passed. When do you study these things? And that is the issue we are talking about. So we should be able to have a form of standard that when you yourself you are not corrupt, don't also allow people who are corrupt to come around you. You should be able to be people of integrity and then ensure that government business is everybody's business. And the issue of nepotism is something I've been very critical about. When you want to do things, do it and be seen that it is transparent. People should see and know that it's transparent. And so the only way you can do that is when you are honest yourself, and then you have to build in the system, the people that are working there, to be honest. You know, today what happens even in the civil service, where I come from, is that when people, before you even push your file from one point to the other, people want you to pay them one form of inducement or the other. And it's not supposed to be that way. We are supposed to have a system where things will begin to work from point A to point Z, the way it ought to work. Nobody should be seen to be bullied. Nobody should be seen to be humiliated. Nobody should be seen to be unduly, maybe remunerated to enable him or her perform her duties. That way, we can be able to send in budgets. The departments, of course, will begin to bring about what they want to do. And these budgets will be scrutinized, and then the appropriate organs will pass it. And at the end of the day, there will be no undue pressure on the legislature, because that is where it comes from. And when we begin to allow them to operate, of course, we'll have a transparent system. But the hallmark is honesty. You who is operating, you should be able to be honest. And like I will always say, when the government operatives are sincere, those who are coming to do business with government will also be sincere. Thank you.
A reminder to members of the audience to please desist from making any sounds or noises that could distract the candidates. Thank you very much. Candidate of the APC. Same question. Are you committed to ensuring transparency and accountability in the financial affairs of Rivers State? And how would you ensure this?
The short answer to that is yes. I have been in my business life, I have been a part of signing agreements and living with agreements with doing business in the United States, in Singapore, in Dubai, in different places, where you must sign agreements on anti-corruption and live by it. Transparency in itself in any of those countries is critical. You are watched, you are seen, you do your budgets, you report, every single thing is done. And we have done that, and we have succeeded in doing that across board. I also happen to be on certain boards within the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. A group in the World Economic Forum is called PACI, Pact Against Corruption Initiative. And this in itself began to showcase why open budgeting and transparency is critical. Why is this the case? Transparency is like shining the light in a dark room. As soon as you put on that light, the first thing that happens is that all the cockroaches that were having fun in darkness, as soon as you put on the light, they disappear, they just take off. And that's exactly what transparency does to budgeting system, to procurement systems within government. We must shine the light. If you don't shine the light, it will not work. One of the experiences that we saw within the Chile example, in Chile, was an example within customs. It was shown across board that customs anywhere was a criminal enterprise. And so what then happened was all those multiple issues, multiple taxations and all, they made one single tariff for any particular good that was coming in, and then publicly put it out so everyone knew exactly what they were bringing and what they were paying for a particular tariff. That was shining the light in a system that was usually opaque and dark. As soon as they did that, corruption in itself dropped within the customs in Chile, dropped by over 90%. With one policy, one day, changed everything. This is what transparency does. So when you then come to within the Nigerian sector, and what do we do within our government? The first aspect of it is that whole thing called the Freedom of Information Act bill, we must make sure that it works within Rivers State. I'm one of those that has been a proponent of it because I know that I have been accused in this state for documents that are available within the public sector. And I've said to them, release it. There's something called the Freedom of Information Act. All the documents are in the public space. Go there. And I know that it's out there, but people have been blocked from getting that access. Within my government, we must make sure that everything is open. Budget is one part of it, but you must be able to account for what you have put as a budget. If you're unable to account for what you have put in the budget, then you just write any kind of budget. We don't want any kind of budget. We actually want budgets that work, and you are held accountable for the budget that you have put forward. Thank you.
We'll move on to the second question in this segment, and I'll start with candidate of the Labour Party. And this concerns local governments. The constitutional amendment to guarantee autonomy for local government in Nigeria was rejected by 24 states, including Rivers State. Where do you stand on the issue of financial and administrative autonomy for local governments, and what will you do to make it a reality in Rivers State?
Thank you, moderator. Actually, the sector I'm coming from, we are pro-local government autonomy. We have always canvassed for it. We have always prosecuted it, and we have always gone to the forefront to see how local government can be autonomous. And why do we advocate that? It's simple. When you allow people financial freedom, they will be able to perform. And once they are performing, you can be able to put in place machineries to checkmate and supervise the system. But when you have a system whereby only everybody disburses, one person disburses everything, and what you feel that you give to a particular local government, you cannot give to the other person, it means that the local governments will be strangulated. And once they are strangulated, they will not be. So I am a proponent of local government. If God permitting, and I become the governor of Rivers State, local government will be fully autonomous here. But the irony of it is that the same people you are advocating for the autonomies are the same people who are also going back, because I don't know the mentality of the average Rivers person. They are the same people who are going there to see how they can also run the system down. I'll give you a case scenario. I led, I'm still the chairperson of Nigeria Labour Congress here in the state. I led a group, local government workers, the judiciary staff, and the legislative staff to the Rivers State House of Assembly on this issue of autonomy. And when we went there, the House of Assembly was shut. Nobody was there. They now asked the clerk of the House to come and receive us. And of course, we said no. The clerk, I cannot receive us. We want these honorable members, one of them. And they came, and when we finished talking to them, these same people whom we are asking, agitated for their own autonomy, are the same people who will go behind to vote against them. So what are we talking about? Sometimes it's lip service, eye service, and we have sycophants all over the system. That is the system that we deliberately want to quell. We will not want people to begin to give a lip service, because the same people that are saying today, you have done well, as soon as you step out of it, they will be the same people that will begin to criticize you. So we are going to put in place very transparent measures and ensure that every sector of government that is supposed to be autonomous will be autonomous. And that way, we'll have a system that will be working and will be seen to be working. Thank you.
Still with you, candidate of Labour Party. And please take this question in 2 minutes. If you are elected governor, what are the first 3 things you're going to do to raise Rivers people's confidence once you're in office?
Thank you. When I'm elected governor, I will first and foremost, in our first 100 days in office, I will ensure that pensioners are paid all their gratuities and pension arrears. I will also ensure that the civil servants being the engine room of government are promoted as and when due and well remunerated. That way you will build their confidence, and that way you find out that the economy will begin to flow. I will put in place a working system that will ensure that every sector of... What do I mean by that? One person cannot be a civil servant, the same person will be a contractor, the same person will be this, will be that. No. We begin to make sure that people are given what is rightfully theirs, and that way we begin to see that people begin to have confidence in the system. Moreover, we will do serious public enlightenment campaigns. And when we are doing serious public enlightenment campaigns, we will be seen to be transparent ourselves, to be honest with what we are doing. Because there are sometimes you can be saying something and your body language is doing another. People will not take you serious. People will want to see what you are doing, and then they will follow that. So our government, with that government that will lead by example. And when we do that, you will see that everything will work for everybody. And the confidence of people will be kindled, and the people will begin to flow in the direction of government.
Thank you. Candidate of the APC, where do you stand on the issue of financial and administrative autonomy for local government areas, and what will you do to make it a reality in Rivers State?
So first and foremost, I believe 100% that the local government must be autonomous. I think financial autonomy and the autonomy of the local government that is at the closest to the people is necessary for development to happen. And so I will advocate for it, I will push it, and I'll make sure that that happens. The course after mine at the National Institute studied for 1 year the issue of local government. And they came out with a resolution that if you do not address and if you do not free the local governments from their state governors, we're not going to have development. We know the problem, but we don't have enough confident people, strong people who are not afraid of the local government beginning to become stronger than them. It can't happen. We need to free them. So for me, that's a very, very simple thing. We need to strengthen the local government so that development at the local government level becomes strong. What we're seeing today, the lack of development, the poverty, the insecurity, the unemployment, the drugs, the teenage pregnancies, and all of that happening at the local government level is a failure of the local government. We need to be able to strengthen the local governments to do that. And I'm 100% for that. We must do it, and I will stand by it.
Stay with you. And in 2 minutes, please. If you are elected governor, what are the first 3 things you're going to do to raise confidence of residents of Rivers State once you're in office?
One of the first things that I have seen in my campaign, and I'm going to maintain that, is that the Rivers people need to know, they need to feel, they need to touch, they need to see their governors. We need to make sure that that bond continues. So the first aspect of it is that on a weekly basis, at the very least, we must have live conversations with the people of Rivers State. That must continue. We're not going to lose our touch with the people. They must feel that they're part of this government because our government is their government. The whole thing of separating government from the people and then you go and sit in an ivory tower making decisions from them must not happen. So number one, that connection must continue. Number two, the policies that are bottom up and top-down policies that are made, the people have to be a part of the policy making because anyone that does not own the policies that are being made for them cannot implement it. So we're going to be working with the people of Rivers State in developing the policies that affect them. That then gives them confidence that they're a part of the process. We must do that and we will develop that without fail. The last aspect of it, which is a confidence thing building for them, is that Rivers money sits down in the pockets of too many people. Rivers is a very rich state with extremely poor people. They must know that there's a trickle-down effect of that money that comes down to the grassroots, and they must feel it, they must touch it, and it must be a part of what they do. On this, we must do it. So we will develop that aspect of it, that they know that the money of this state is not just going to sit down in the pockets of big politicians, but it will get down to the very grassroots that has sweated and deserves a part of that money. Thank you.
Okay. Candidate of the SDP. The same questions as well. Where do you stand on the issue of financial and administrative autonomy for local government areas? And what will you do to make it a reality in Rivers State if you are elected governor?
Thank you very much. Let me say this. I'm a politician, and I have the experience as to what leads to these problems. No matter what anybody says, if you have a political party in which one man will choose the governorship candidate, choose the senatorial candidate, choose the House of Assembly candidate, and choose the chairmanship candidate, there can be no autonomy for the local governments. So freedom for the people must start by us respecting, even first, the provisions of the constitution of the parties that pick this local government chairman. As governor of Rivers State, I have absolutely no intention of controlling any local government. I don't want any boy to be my boy who is a local government chairman. I will allow all Rivers people in their local governments to choose who they think will best represent their interest. That is the foundation of the autonomy of local governments. The second thing I would like to say is that as much as possible, once you have a democratically elected system of choosing leaders at the local level, not those that will carry gun and carry knife and be pursuing people up and down when they come to contest or when to come to campaign in their areas on the instructions of anybody. Those people will serve the interest of their own people, and that will be the foundation of autonomy for the local government system. I also want to say that as much as possible, we must tax the local government with clear challenges of the things that they are supposed to provide for the people in their different areas. Today, our local governments in security vote for the chairman, chairman's father, chairman's mother, former chairman, and all that. The whole resources of the local government system is being frittered away. And there is no opportunity in our local areas for the people themselves to make money and contribute to the development of their own areas. I assure Rivers people that when we take over the government of the state, all this will change, and it will change immediately. People will be able to choose their leaders, and those leaders will have an obligation to serve their own people, not to serve any godfather or big man outside of the local government that is supposed to elect you. I think that is the best way to go about solving this problem.
And still with you, if you are elected governor, what are the first three things that you're going to do to raise confidence levels once you're in office?
I think the first thing I will do as governor is to hold a meeting with the police. And even once I'm elected, even before I'm sworn in, I will start holding meetings with the security agencies on how we effectively fund and provide for the policemen that will secure your lives. I think that is the first sign people will see that things are changing in the state, because on the average, every Rivers man or woman, their first interaction is with the security when you come around. So if there's a change, that will be one of the first places you should begin to see it. The second thing, of course, will be in education. As soon as we take over, we'll start a biometric registration and identification of our children, of our residents. We need to know every Rivers man and woman who is resident here. I believe that you must have a proper address, you must have a proper number, you must have a proper identification to be able to function within our service system. Because whatever we are going to provide for Rivers people must be numbers-based and numbers-driven. We cannot begin to make guesstimates and estimates for services when we can actually have real numbers and real figures and make plans that are based on facts and figures that will impact the lives of Rivers people. I believe that once Rivers people are aware that we are actually doing what is in their best interest and that the government will know them. If INEC can know every voter and say that there are 93 million voters and not one can repeat a vote, why can't Rivers State government know every Rivers man and woman? Why do we need to approach the government through honorables and through big men and through all that? You are the voter. You are the one voting for the candidate of your choice. The government should be able to know you. We do not need middlemen in the affairs of government. We will eliminate them and create a government that knows you and will serve you directly. Thank you.
Thank you. And now to the third part of this final segment. I will start with candidates of the APC. And this has to do with education. The needs of our public schools are tremendous, and the quality of education and services, especially for kids with special needs in these areas, is often horrifying. Schools lack the budget to provide appropriate amenities to students. There are not enough aids in the classrooms. Specialist services, speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy are insufficient to student needs. Advocacy groups to help parents who often lack literacy, knowledge, and time due to long work hours are underfunded. Lack of compliance with Individuals with Disabilities Education Act regulations often goes unaddressed. There is no doubt that we have a big problem with education in Rivers State, especially at the basic level. What plans do you have for the education sector in Rivers State if you are elected governor? And especially, what is your plan for addressing very important issues affecting vulnerable students?
Okay, thank you very much again for another great question. We're all in this room today because we're educated. We happen to be running for governor of Rivers State because of the level of education that we have. We can answer questions because we're educated. Education plays such a critical part in any development of any society. If we truly love Rivers State, then the education of Rivers State is something that we cannot toy with. However, if you take a picture of 100 years ago and you look at a factory 100 years ago and you take a picture of a classroom 100 years ago and you look at the picture of a classroom today, you will find out that there is no difference, very little difference apart from the blackboard between the classroom 100 years ago and the classroom of today. However, the factory of 100 years ago has changed. Everything in life has transited dramatically except the classroom, which means that the way we sit, the way we teach, and the function of our classrooms must change in Rivers State. Thankfully, globally, there has been technological advantages that we can deal with that will propel us and help us leapfrog. If we're going to change education, which I intend to do, then we must change it through technology. We must invest heavily in the technology aspect that will then save us from this current situation where you go to schools and you have only one teacher. Oftentimes the headmaster teaching primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sometimes you get into schools that you have nobody knows. Anyway, the point here is that technology makes that difference. So what are we going to do? We're going to be able to create a technologically advantageous state that will see us leapfrogging and educating our children in such a way that they will be able to close the gap for which they have already suffered a long term for. Now, technology also addresses the disadvantaged children, those who are living with physical disabilities. Technology addresses those who are deaf. Technology addresses those who are blind. Technology addresses those who cannot move from one place to another, who are immobile. Technology does a lot. And so with technology, we can close all of these gaps that would have normally existed in making it very difficult for people to access education. Accessibility to quality education is something that we must do, regardless of where you are. You don't have to leave Elem Sangama for you to be able to get the right education that you need. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate of the SDP. What are your plans for fixing education in Rivers State if you are elected governor? And what plans do you have as well to address important issues affecting vulnerable students?
I must say that what has happened to education in this state is actually very, very sad. And it is something that will bleed the heart of any reasonable person. Without education, children from very vulnerable families have absolutely no means of being able to get out of their situation and their condition. And they are therefore forced into only one channel, the channel of crime and all other such challenges. The first thing that I think we need to do is to go back to the basic understanding of what education is. Education is not just about the buildings. Education is what actually gets into the head of the child. And one of the most critical things that we need to address is the fact that today in this state, we do not just need to fund education. Education must be funded. And I should use this opportunity to say clearly to everyone that there is no such thing as free education. Education for the child and the beneficiary can be free, but for the society, education must have a cost, and we must be able to identify that cost. One of the most important things we must all remember is the quality of teachers that we have. Who are the teachers? Where are they trained? How do we upgrade their knowledge? Today's world, education is globally competitive. What are children learning in Japan, in China, in India, in America? And what are we teaching our children here? We need to review our curriculum. We need to review the very atmosphere in which we try to impact education. We need to review what we're doing periodically to see how we can improve it. Giving quality education to all our children is going to be very, very expensive, but we must be prepared as a society to pay that price, because education has a cost, but so also does ignorance and poor quality education. And today we are paying the price of poor education. If we invest properly into proper education for our children by training our teachers and, if need be, increasing their pay. When we talk about increasing money for those who render services, we are not saying that necessarily because of the people who render the services. We're saying that because of the quality of service that we need to give to our citizens. The best teachers must be paid better than ordinary teachers. If you pay ordinary money, you get half-baked teachers and you get half-baked education. We have to be prepared to bear the real cost of educating our children. I know how much most of us in this room spend on our own children. Rivers State government must be prepared to spend something close to that amount on every child here in Rivers State. That's what I think we need to do, and that's where we'll start from. Thank you.
Thank you.